Nobody taught you the vocabulary of your own psychology. You learned how to troubleshoot an engine before you learned what anxiety actually looks like in a man's body. And because of that, millions of men are walking around with behaviors they've been explaining away as personality when they're actually patterns with clinical names. This isn't about labeling yourself. It's about recognition. And recognition is the only way you get to choose what happens next. Men don't talk about this. Not because they don't feel it. Because they were never given the words. So they carry the symptoms and call them something else. Here's what some of them actually are. Number 1. Irritability that comes from nowhere. You snap at the wrong person. Your threshold is low, and you know it. People walk on eggshells around you, and you hate that too. But it keeps happening. And they're not wrong about the effect you're having on them. That reaction is real. People feel it. But here's what most men never get told. Research from Harvard Medical School found that in men, depression frequently presents not as sadness, but as irritability, low frustration, tolerance, and anger. Not moodiness, not immaturity. A clinical symptom that goes unrecognized for years because it doesn't look like what we picture depression to look like. One man described it like this. His team had a minor deadline change, nothing catastrophic. He fired back an email in a tone he immediately regretted. His manager pulled him aside and said quietly, "I'm not worried about the project. I'm worried about you." He'd been calling it impatience for 3 years. That sentence gave him a different name for it. Number 2. Withdrawing from people you used to enjoy. You used to have people you actually wanted to see. Now you turn down invitations and feel relieved when plans fall through. Nothing happened. You just don't have the bandwidth anymore. And that withdrawal has a real cost. Relationships thin, people stop asking, and you notice them noticing. The American Psychological Association identifies social withdrawal as one of the most consistent behavioral markers of clinical depression and anxiety. Not introversion, not preference. A response your brain developed to manage something it couldn't process openly. Number 3. Losing interest in things that used to matter. The hobbies you had. The projects that used to pull you out of bed. The things that felt like yours. They've gone quiet. You still do some of them, but the pull isn't there. You've probably told yourself you grew out of it, got realistic, matured. What you're describing has a clinical name, anhedonia. Research published in The Lancet Psychiatry describes it as a breakdown in the brain's reward, signaling your dopamine system is no longer connecting effort to pleasure the way it once did. That's not maturity. That's a measurable change in how your brain processes meaning. Number 4. Sleep that doesn't restore you. You sleep 8 hours and wake up exhausted. Or you can't sleep at all. Either way, morning doesn't feel like a reset. The fatigue is real, and pushing through it is getting harder, not easier. The National Institute of Mental Health identifies disrupted sleep architecture, not just hours, but quality, as a core diagnostic feature of both major depressive disorder and generalized anxiety. Your body isn't being lazy. Your nervous system is stuck in a state it doesn't know how to exit on its own. Number 5. Catastrophizing. Something goes wrong at work. An email arrives in the wrong tone. 15 minutes later, you've already played out every version of how this ends badly. The stakes are never small for you, and you know this is happening. Knowing doesn't stop it. Dr. Aaron Beck, whose decades of research on cognitive behavioral therapy shaped how clinicians understand anxiety, identified catastrophic thinking as a hallmark pattern of anxiety disorders. Your brain is running threat detection algorithms that are miscalibrated, still operating like you're in an environment where you had to anticipate everything all the time. Number 6. Emotional numbness. Something happens that should affect you, a loss. Good news, a moment that matters, and there's almost nothing there. You watch yourself react the way you're supposed to, but underneath there's a flatness. People might call you stoic. They don't know it's not a choice. Research published in the Journal of Psychiatric Research links emotional blunting directly to depression, and specifically to years of suppressed emotional processing in men. Your system didn't break. It learned to protect you. That protection now has a cost. Number 7. Difficulty concentrating. You sit down to work. 20 minutes later, you've opened 6 tabs, read 3 sentences, and moved nothing forward. Your focus used to be reliable. Now it disappears under pressure. You've tried harder, and it doesn't help. A 2019 study from King's College London found that cognitive impairment, mental fog, difficulty concentrating, slow processing appears in up to 94% of people experiencing a major depressive episode. Not attention deficit, a system running on depleted resources. But here's the question you need to sit with. Understanding these patterns is not the same as doing something about them. Are you watching yourself with clarity, or are you just getting better at explaining yourself to yourself? Because there's a real difference, and only you know which one it is. Number 8. Physical symptoms with no clear cause. Headaches that don't respond to painkillers. Tightness in your chest that appears for no reason. Jaw tension. Stomach issues doctors can't explain. The tests come back clean. And the absence of a cause doesn't make the pain go away, it makes it more confusing. Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, whose research on trauma and the nervous system reframed clinical understanding of how the body holds psychological stress, documented extensively how anxiety doesn't just live in the mind. It becomes physical, stored in the body's stress response. Your pain is real. It's coming from a system that hasn't been given room to discharge. Number 9. Hypervigilance. You're always scanning. In a room, you know where the exits are. In a conversation, you're reading subtext before the sentence finishes. You can't fully relax, even when everything is fine. Some part of you doesn't believe it. People call this being switched on, aware, and you've learned to use that framing. But what you're describing is hypervigilance, a core diagnostic feature of PTSD and chronic anxiety disorders. Your threat detection system never got the signal that the threat passed. It was trained to stay ready. It never got permission to stand down. Number 10. Black and white thinking. Either it works perfectly or it failed. Either someone is trustworthy or they're not. There's not much gray. And that absolutism has cost you things, relationships, opportunities you walked away from because they weren't exactly right. You probably experience this as standards, principles, knowing what you want. But all or nothing thinking is a documented cognitive pattern in anxiety disorders and a diagnostic criterion in emotional dysregulation. The clinical literature doesn't call it a character flaw. It calls it a learned pattern developed early in environments that felt unpredictable or unsafe. Number 11. The feeling that something is about to go wrong. Even when things are good, there's a low hum underneath. A waiting. Like the other shoe is always about to drop. You've learned to function around it, even to use it. But it never fully goes away. The American Psychiatric Association identifies this anticipatory dread, not panic, not sadness, just a persistent low-level sense of impending threat, as a hallmark symptom of generalized anxiety disorder. Not pessimism. A nervous system wired early to expect disruption that never got a stable enough environment to unwire. If you're a man, you were handed tools for almost everything except the inside of your own mind. You were taught to diagnose an engine, read a balance sheet, push through. Nobody handed you the vocabulary for any of this. That gap isn't weakness. It's a design flaw in how we raise men. But at some point, and you already know this, the responsibility passes to you. Most men spend decades building systems to manage things they were never taught to name. The naming doesn't fix it, but it's where the work actually starts. Which of these have you been calling something else? Stress, personality, just who you are? Drop it in the comments. And if you know a man who's been carrying these patterns without a name for them, send this to him. Sometimes that's enough to start something. Follow for more on the psychology of quiet intensity.